3 years, I thought so, 3 years. It offers group travels experiences under the total appropriate slogan of epic experiences in spectacular places with awesome people. Love it. Jewel discovered spiritualism around 2008 and really started a deep dive into it in 2010. She became an ordained minister with the Church Living Spirit in 2014 and also was elected to the COL, Church Living Spirit Board, that same year. She currently serves as our vice president of the church and is a member of the Lilydale Assembly. And I know I've told this story many occasions, but the very first time I stepped foot at the Church Living Spirit, Jewel was the chairperson that day, and I thought, this is cool. You know, she's cool, her energy's awesome. And without knowing anything about the church, anything about spiritualism, I fell in love with her, the church, and I joined the church that very same day. We've been best friends ever since. She's been my cohort, my partner. Even though living in Mars, she's like, I don't think I do enough. She does plenty. She does plenty. And I love her to death. Jewel Rozanski.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for being here today. It's nice to get a little break from the heat. Not that we'll say that too much in Lilydale, because usually it's snowing, but it's kind of nice to not be sweating up here today. So as Nancy mentioned in my bio, I was considered a teacher by profession for 14 years of my life. But I've always said that I consider myself and everyone else to be a student too, because of course, we are all students of life. And because we're always learning and always progressing, or at least we certainly should be. And there are different things that happen in our lives, and whether they are good or bad, they catapult us into these learning experiences. And these learning experiences that we go through lead us to people who I believe that God or the universe or infinite intelligence or whatever you want to call it brings into our lives for a very specific reason. I've always loved the phrase generally attributed to Buddha that says, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. At a very difficult moment in my life, about 14 years ago, when I started that deep dive into spiritualism, the world put me on a path of someone who I consider to be a mentor and a teacher and a very, very dear friend. After experiencing 2 sudden deaths and subsequently experiencing spirit communication for the first time, I confided in one of my colleagues that I was teaching with at that time what I was going through. I wasn't sure if I was going crazy, if I was just suffering to a point where I thought spirits were communicating with me. I didn't know, but I knew that I needed help somehow. So this colleague told me about Lynn Wiltsey, who, as luck would have it, happened to have taught in the same building where I taught, and also happened to be, at that point in time, the president of the Lilydale Assembly. At that point in time, I had only been to Lilydale once. I kind of thought, hey, spiritualism seems maybe like what I believe, but I wasn't really sure and didn't really know a whole lot about it, and like I said, had only been there once. So my colleague suggested that I call Lynn, and I did, and I guess you could say that the student was ready, and my teacher had appeared. I have never looked back from Lilydale or spiritualism since my first phone call and in-person meeting with Lynn Wiltsey. She was really my rock and such a source of wisdom, and wisdom that I really believe has helped shape me into who I am today. I hold dear in my heart all of the classes I took from her, all of the times we would spend chatting together in her living room, the dinners that we would share together out and about, and from all of those occasions and experiences, mainly the advice that she imparted upon me. Before she retired from mediumship and moved away from Lilydale, she gave me several books and also a pretty large fabric box filled with all of her old lectures from various Sunday services from years past. I was fortunate enough to go with my friend Sue Glazier to visit Lynn a few times in Dayton, Ohio after she had moved away, but I certainly missed having her right here on the grounds on 2nd Street. She passed away in January, surrounded by her family, and I think of her all of the time. Feeling nostalgic, recently I opened up that box, which for any of you here, and I know there's a few of you that know Lynn, reeked of stale cigarette smoke. But you know what? I loved it. And it took me right back to that living room with all of her bears sitting around me, and I felt just like I had before in old times. Among leafing through all of these papers in there and these amazing talks that she had given, I found several pages with just random quotes or thoughts put on there. And many of them were things I remember her telling me as I was forging my spiritual path. And a lot of those words had stuck with me and are things that I have as part of me today that I use and share with others when I'm trying to help them. I can't say how many of these are actually quotes from someplace else or original thoughts from Lynn, but what I can say is they're certainly put in her words, and what I'm going to share with you today, I'm going to call Lynn's life lessons. And I hope that these words resonate with you and help you on the next step in the journey of life as you're experiencing it right now at this moment. We are here for two primary purposes: to learn and to teach. We are supposed to try to be happy in the process of both. Good luck with that. In my experience, learning and being happy don't gel very well. Most of the time, learning hurts. I definitely think she's right about this. If we think about any of those points in time in our life where we have actually learned something that has changed us for the better and caused us to grow spiritually, the catalyst for that was usually not something easy. And in fact, a lot of times it was a painful point in our lives. And I know that was the case for me when I first met Lynn. The past has created who I am today. That's all the power I can give it. If I don't like who I am today, I am the only one who can fix it. I can learn and benefit from the past, or I can wallow in it and feel sorry for myself. I can make positive choices for my future, or I can make myself my own victim and sink into my own mire. Make peace with the past so it doesn't screw up the present. Lynn always stressed personal responsibility to me, and I'm sure others that she knew as well. And if you think about the lives that we lead and the experiences that we've had and some of the very painful things that people have gone through, and some of those past experiences for some are far worse than for others. But if you think about them, you have a choice about how you react to them. Sometimes you might need help, whether it's a therapist or a mentor or someone else to help you overcome that and make peace with the past. But it's up to you what you do with it. And if you allow it to sink you, or if you allow it to give you strength and for it to be something that you rise above and continue on. Don't require the love of others to be content. As nice as it can be, the responsibility to be content and or happy is one's own. That very first time that I met Lynn, she gave me a copy of the principles that are on the wall over there. Or I hope they still are. Anyway, they've been there forever. So they weren't exactly our church's principles, but they're the basic kind of simple spiritualist principles that everybody can go with. And she talked about the principle of creating one's own happiness or unhappiness according to natural law. Again, we create the lives that we have for ourselves, and we have to really own that and understand the great gift of personal responsibility and control that we do have over how we face each struggle that we're going to face. What you think of me is none of my business. I am what I reveal to you and what you perceive of me, neither of which can be all that is. She even gave me a book with the title, What You Think of Me Is None of My Business. And that was honestly quite a great little gem from the 1980s, and I still have it and I love it. And if you think about that, what you think of me is none of my business, we really can't necessarily control what everybody thinks about us, because we're not for everybody and everybody's not for us, and that's okay. The only thing we can do is be the best person that we can be, and what someone else does with that is really up to them. And hopefully, if a bunch of people don't like you, you might want to look in the mirror and start consider some, reflection. But sometimes there will be people that don't like you, and it's really outside of your control. And additionally, like she said there, I am what I reveal to you. There might be more going on than you see in somebody's life or what they reveal. And then it's up to each individual to perceive what is revealed. And we are really all these limitless beings that are lying somewhere in between that perception and what's revealed. Each person is on his or her own journey. You cannot understand it or its impact because it's not your trip. Their reasons and their motivations are their own. What someone says or does to you might actually have nothing to do with you, but perhaps the anger or negativity or something else that someone has inside of them for reasons that we are never going to know. And it's not our responsibility to know. Likewise, it's not up to us to control someone's journey or try to mold someone else's journey into exactly what we think it should be so that it fits our own perceptions of what the best life for that person can be. We are all having a human experience, moments, opportunities, choices. Learn from the negative, embrace the positive, and don't get in your own way. Remember, others are doing the same thing. Don't get in their way either. Just like I just said, sometimes it's very difficult for us because we see someone on a certain path and we want it to be different than what it is. And maybe we even want to control what's going on in their life. We want them to seek help for something. We want to be the one to help them for something, and we just can't always be. And we have to let go of that. And we have to realize that people are on their own journeys, and we have to step back and not get in their way. We can be of help when we're asked. We can be of help just to the best of the ability that we can do, but we can't force something on someone else. My greatest gift to myself is allowing myself to be me. My greatest gift to another is the same. Each human experience is unique. Being human is an adventure we have chosen. Growth and learning through our human experience is not a competition or a race. It's all personal. Again, we can't control the outcome for someone else. And even if we've shared similar experiences with someone else, what might have worked for us in our healing or in our growth might not necessarily be the same thing that's going to work for someone else. I definitely believe that sometimes we have shared experiences so we can help someone else by giving them the insight that we learned through our personal growth and experience and struggle. But again, nothing is a one-size-fits-all for life. Remember not to give others the power to define you or control your emotions. When I was a teacher, I always used to say to students when they would complain to me, well, so-and-so made me so mad, and so-and-so made me this, and so-and-so made me that. And in all honesty, they probably wanted to slap me because this phrase was something Lynn had told me so many times. No one can make you anything without your consent. When I look back on my teaching career and I think about the early days when I was just 21 years old, I can think of plenty of times that I got mad at students for doing stupid things that teenagers are going to do. Talking too much, throwing things, and other things like that. And I know I overreacted and might have yelled at them. I might have even thrown something myself, something soft, keep in mind. But I might have thrown a few things back in the day. And you know, the older I got and the more wisdom I had, and probably thanks to Lynn in this case, the more I realized I wasn't going to let the actions of anybody, even some crazy little teenagers, get me to a point where I was so worked up that it disrupted my inner peace. And I think that comes with age and emotional intelligence, perhaps, but when we think of the things that people do, we can't control what people do, whether it's to us or whether it's just in general or whether those actions trigger upset in us or anything else. But we can certainly control our reactions, and we can decide how much energy and what kind of energy we are going to give the situation or the person that is presented to us. So really, no one can make you anything without you allowing your own energy to get the way that it becomes. I also think about sometimes when you get so upset about something or someone, and I remember one point in time, which was around the time I came to see Lynn, that I hated someone. I hated someone. I've never hated anyone else, and I don't think I'm probably ever going to hate anybody else again in my life. But you know what she told me? She told me that hating someone was like drinking poison and waiting for the other person to die. So did that other person that I hated do terrible things? Yes, I would say so. But did she even know how much I hated her, or how much that I had this terrible energy in me that was just bubbling up and permeating every minute of my day? Who knows? Probably not. Who was the one really most affected by the hate in me? Me. So she was right. Having that hate inside of me was just like drinking poison and thinking something was going to happen to the person I hated. It didn't. It felt a whole lot better after I was able to forgive that situation and that person. The only person you have to live with 24/7 is yourself, and wherever you go, there you are. Live so that you can be comfortable with that person. I loved that. The only person you have to live with 24/7 is yourself. And that was another thing, because of Lynn, I used to tell my students as well. You have to make decisions that you can feel good about. You have to know that you are doing the best you can and that you are being the best person that you can be, whatever that is. And that might look different from one day than it does to the next day. But the point is, you have to live with you. And yes, you might think if you're younger, I have to live with my parents, or you might think because of situations, I have to live with my spouse or my children or other things like that. But really, you're the only one that is with you 24/7, and you don't have a choice to leave that person, no matter how hard it might be. You can't leave yourself. So you might as well like yourself, and you might as well decide when you're making choices that you're going to do the best thing that you can live with and that you can know you have respect for yourself for doing. We may ask, when have I suffered enough? The answer is when you are tired of suffering and decide to put down the baggage and move on. So we know that technically you only have to live with yourself and you're responsible for your own decisions, your own happiness, your own unhappiness. But sometimes the choices you have to make and the choices you have right in front of you, the people you might have to break free from, or the situations that seem difficult are difficult. And you might be suffering. She told me this quote on more than one occasion, and it certainly helped me whenever I'm at a crossroads or I find myself complaining about something over and over and over again. If you find your complaints becoming your story, when are you going to decide that you've suffered enough and complained enough and change is not happening and maybe isn't going to happen unless you put one foot in front of the other and make something happen? You have to decide that enough is enough. And when you have officially decided that your suffering has been enough, you take action and you make a change. Yes, bad things happen. Of course they do. But no matter how bad it gets, or how good it gets, it will always change. It's like the old saying, this too shall pass. So I don't know what's going on in each one of your lives sitting out there today, and you don't know what's going on in mine, but what we can certainly say is that eventually things do always change. So if you're in a high, I hope you stay there for as long as possible. And if you're in a low, I hope that when next year comes around and you're at this time, that low was just a memory and something that you learned and grew through and are stronger because of. Because things will always change. And when we have those lows in our lives, they eventually get better. They eventually become memories. They eventually become those blips in the roadmap that have made us who we are today. Pieces of our past. The truth? Sometimes I deserve better than what I get, and sometimes I don't. That is also true. I get what I ask for, one of the laws of the universe. Notice I didn't say pray for, I said ask for. Through my thoughts, my words, and my actions. That's what will create reality. Every thought is a prayer, so we pray a good prayer, and then we end up contradicting it with our daily thoughts, words, and actions. Our words and our thoughts manifest our reality. So choose wisely. The measuring stick for that is our intentions. If our intentions are good, the outcome is what it is supposed to be. So we may try to manifest something, and we may have these thoughts, and we may have these prayers, and they might be great. But if inside yourself you still have work to do and you find yourself saying, oh, I want this, but I'm not good enough. I want this, but I don't have the skills it takes. I want this, but I'm not confident enough to take it. If your actual actions or thoughts are contradicting what you're asking for, don't be surprised if you don't get it. Now, obviously, it's easier said than done to think you can just manifest anything that you want and that you can get your own inner thoughts in line with what your dreams are. But it's one of those times where you have to take a look at yourself and realize, okay, this is what I'm asking for and this is what I want. How do I get it, and what work do I have to do personally to grow so I can achieve those goals that I have? Choose to be happy. It is the only choice that makes sense. I don't think I need to say any more about that one. One has to ask, why do we hold on to some of our fears? Probably it is so we have an excuse to hide from ourselves and validate our own weaknesses and failure to act. Fear needs to be faced and erased in order to be happy. The fear of letting go of fear is just about the biggest challenge we face. It is only by letting go that we can be free to be. Len used to tell me that fear meant false evidence appearing real. How many times do we fear things, or are afraid to take action, afraid to do something, afraid to take the next step, and the fears that we have really don't have consequences that are that big of a deal? I have a tattoo on my arm that says, "Beyond fear lies freedom," and I truly believe that. In reference to life, Lynn says this: "It is all a great play. Some have larger roles than others. Some are stars, some aren't. Some have more of the comedy lines. Some are more dramatic and tense. And in the end, it is all a play, and we are all actors on the great stage of humanity." I know that I am certainly grateful for the roles that everyone has played in my life. And I will keep my focus on being grateful for all of the future characters that come into my life and into my play, and also thankful and grateful for all the characters that end up exiting stage left for whatever reason they have to exit. No matter the experience, everyone teaches us something. Lynn was certainly a star in my life, and as many others have been and will continue to be, I am grateful. I will be certain to be mindful of the role I hold in the plays of others as well. And I'm going to leave you with one last thought from Lynn, one last thing that she had written in her notes. In the end, we get to learn the moral of the play. All the actors get full credit for the parts they play. The curtain falls, and we realize that we were only playing parts in the costumes called the human body. For in the end, we are all spiritual beings, being human. It ain't easy, but in the end, it's worth the price of admission. Thank you.
I always tell